Thank you, and thanks for coming here, and everyone, welcome to the De-Jank 1-on-1 session. This is a session about how to de-jank or how to anti-jank, and so this is a session for everyone. I'm really excited to meet everyone here, and I do hope you have enjoyed a fantastic event, including a lot of good sessions and meetups, and also the amazing Unreal party last night. So before I officially start, I want to have a very quick introduction to myself. I'm Chen. I work here, working as a principal technical product designer. This title might be very confusing about what principal technical product designer is doing. So I will save that for later. But for now, I will continue that. So I'm physically coming from another side of the earth. That I live in Shanghai, in China. And so if you come see me, feel free to call me Chen, or if you know how to speak in Chinese, also you can also call me He Qian instead. I've been working in the gaming industry for more than 17 years. I helped to ship console games before I joined Epic Games like Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell, Far Cry, as well as some of the other mobile titles. In my last 6 years working in Epic Games, I've been working on some game modes like Fortnite Imposters, and then I've been fully focused on the creative and UEFN development. So here come to the slide. I will quickly introduce what the product design means, technical product design means. So this guy, me, I have 2 different jobs. One job is, working as an NPC AI product owner, that I build and maintain NPCs from the relevant features and also the associated workflow, as well as, bringing some of the Fortnite character, this CID is new cosmetic skins to the game. This is one of the jobs I'm doing. The other part of me is someone who is leading a team we call internally as a shield team. The shield team is trying to debug all the device issues and also UEFN workflow issues, try to resolve regressions and on every major build release and handle some edge cases like unfortunately that will have some persistent loss. And our goal is try to eliminate all this Epic owned junks that, sorry, we bring that to you. But this session here is come to the audience who want to learn about how to improve their project, to de-junk their UEFN project, like, including some of the technical and design philosophies and how you can improve your games, how you can make your life easier, better, and also live easier. So this session is just as what you see in the last slide. This session is focused on the other side of me, is on the shield side. So try to help you, to protect your product, try to help you to improve your game, and try to help you, to get rid of some of the, nasty bug you have in the product. All right. So here, this is a quick schedule. We have made 3 sections I will be talking, and including one quick shows about what would be a janky player journey would be, including some kind of video reference that we'll be doing in the game. And then there are 2 major sections I want to bring that to you. The first one is about De-Jank 1-on-1, including a lot of best practice that as a designer that I would like to always apply to a game. The later one is about developer iterations. As a UEFN dev, how can you save your time, from your daily work? How can you, communicate better with your team? So here, let's start with a short video about the janky player journey. Just disclaimer first. So this video was recorded early this year. So when we are playing some of the live games, so there is no offense, to any of the game you might be working on. It's just we found the issue. We think that it can be improved and it can be easily, get that rid of. So let's come out that. All right, so this is typically the first one, especially when you're playing with first-person game, you have bad glitch. You will see, that's so janky. I'll try to. The second one is interesting. It's something that I didn't call it as junk, but some of our team members found it like confusing because they have no idea where to go, what to do when they start the game. Just pick a weapon, no idea what next. And then the last example is actually a very good game. I love that. However, it's suffering from some of the graphic issues. Do you see that light, the all blue part of it? we've seen that a lot in some of the time that when you try to adapt the environment or you try to use a asynchronous device to change your time of day. So those are the issues we commonly hit that we try to use a better refinement to de-jank that, to remove that from your game. This can help your game better. I cannot promise that this will help you to get a better impressions on Discover, but I can promise that this is something that can help you to push your game in another level that your audience, your gamers will love that. So let's come to the next sections. The next one is about the De-Jank 101, is about this best practice, how to improve your experience, including 5 different parts: gameplay flow, game feel, visual polish, performance, and the final touch, final polish we have. In this part, when I was forced start to write this doc a few months ago, I really read down more than 100 lines slides for it. I realized it's too much. There are too many of them. So I reduced them down. So some of them feel like, I can use my slide to help you to guide maybe better content. You don't need to remember everything here, but when you understand the core concept of it, you can easily adopt that to any of the game you're making in UEFN, or maybe you're making other game as well. So first, let's start with this core gameplay, the core game flow first. That the most important part to the game itself is that we need to have a good and solid game flow. The game flow can easily guide players seamlessly using some kind of intuitive design and also with clear objectives, so they know exactly what they should do. So here comes to the first, or more precisely, it's a zeros, what we call as a fun first. So when you're building a game, remember it's always fun first. It's always something that you define what will be the core gameplay mechanics, what will be a core fun and reward you give to the player when they start to enjoy your game. In the other part of this slide, I list 3 core gameplay pillars when we start to develop Fortnite imposters. That's 3 pieces that we call it as simple, social, and suspicion. Those 3 key pillars are the 3 key elements when we start to build the game, and all the gameplay elements, all the visual part, and all the in-game events are helping us to push to that direction. Anything else does not matter that much. So, for example, when you start playing Imposter a few years ago, you don't need to think about what you do next. Because when you start the game, you will know that your role is, you are agent or you are imposter, you want to eliminate others, you want to complete the task. Those are the things we are trying to build, and those are the core game loops we want to define first. Without that, I think nothing would exist in your game. And then we start with the real first guideline I'm giving here. That this might not apply to all the games you are building. This applies to most of the games when you are trying to build some roguelike experience or some kind of shooting game experience. That remember to make a good loadout configuration. Make sure that you're building some kind of patterns of the equipment. Like when you have the player equip the set of the weapons, they feel like they are in this kind of class. They feel like I'm actually a soldier, someone who can defend with short-range weapons, things like that. This is an easy way we can help to balance the game, and which not require a lot of effort that you need to invest on the system. And also, interestingly, when you are trying to build a game to fight with the NPCs, this is also the similar guideline. Even the NPCs nowadays in Fortnite, they cannot use the same complicated inventory system as player is. We are working on that, so hopefully later this year you have that. But now that we get something that the NPC can also have this kind of upgrade based on their inventory, based on the weapon they are picking, and also based on the attributes that their health, all this perception. Those are the things that help you to balance the game and to make sure that this gameplay is actually beta ready for it. And the next part is about what I call as event-driven world. It's more about when you build this game world, you want to make the world filled with surprises, filled with events. Like example here is that when we play the LTM, lava worlds that we see this lava region, this is some kind of very subtle design elements that add some kind of time pressure for you. It's not adding your timer directly to your game, but you can have a lot of elements, like this kind of environment elements. So you can also have some kind of, some kind of godlike elements that are trying to drive you across all the game progression. There are a lot of ways to do it, but remember that you have the world under your hands, and you can design and implement a lot of events or state to help the world feel more dynamic, feel more immersive. And then the next part is also another useful tips for the gameplay, for the core gameplay, which is requiring this kind of shooting and also the balancing about how people are teaming up with others for it. And this is something that we usually call dynamic spawn point or dynamic spawn balancing. For us, when we are doing that, I think you might have already used a lot of the player spawn device to do it. For example, if you have a game with more than 20 players, you place more than 20 player spawn pad to it, but you want to actually have more fan control to it. So no one likes that when they are getting spawned, they will get directly spawned into danger. I've been played or I've been implementing game like before that, when I start spawning in the area, I have no safe protection to myself. I've always been instantly eliminated by another team. So this is not fun. So this is something that when you can start to implement some kind of adaptive spawn system by yourself, not just use the default spawn mechanics, but you can also add some kind of spawn protection so that you have some kind of, God mode, within the first 5 seconds you got. You can also add some other checks. One of my favorite checks is about, I will write a word scripting code to associate with each spawn logic to do some kind of line of sight check, as well as some distance check. So make sure that you are not spawning right in front of me, and make sure that when you are spawning and also your enemies are spawning, in your reasonable location. There is one quick reference I can give to you that when I was developing games like Far Cry, we were developing a lot of outpost or stronghold-like experience. We always ask the designers not spawn enemies back to you. This is a very simple rule, but what would be the better rule to spawn them in the game field? Imagine that this is your eye. You have this kind of shape of your eyes. Spawn them in front of this fan shape around 150 degrees. This is one of the best, approved, pre-tested, range. You can spawn your enemies and you can keep your engagement focused on the area. So this is so that, if you design this kind of game with more about shooting mechanics, you can try with that. And the first part is about when you start thinking about your game flow, remember that, you need to handle how we save. Because you might start a game that you require play again and again. Some save can be simple, like, I just want to, first get into the game, I add an intro to the game. And then I will only play this intro tutorial for the first time. However, some of the other game save might be very complicated. I want to save your game state every few frames so that it will be like, you are playing an RPG game that you don't lose your progression easily. But you need to also be mindful that, when you're trying to do this save operations, you might want to do some kind of fail-safe checks about some kind of exotic gameplay elements or moments or the cinematics. Because one example I can give to you that I was originally writing a save system. It will save every 5 seconds. And then I play a cinematic. During that 5 seconds, I save my player location in a very awkward location in that cinematic. I can never receive that back. And my fix for that was quite easy. That's every time I hit issues like this, I will mark them out. Okay, this is a very extraordinary moment. I don't want to save in this awkward location. So I will do this kind of before and after save. Before cinematic plays, I do this save. After the cinematic plays, I do another save. This helps me to migrate issues like this instead of that, for example, I'm saving on the sky or I'm saving on some kind of underground area where I will respawn, I will always fail. And the fifth, refinement suggestion is about, objective clarity. What means that, when you start playing a game, one of the first and importance that I want to give to all designers who want to work on this UEFN game or any other game you want to build is that don't make me think. When you start the game, I definitely don't want to look at all the hard elements in the game and remember who I am. Why should I sit here? What to do next? And in that case, that you want, what you can do is that you can do some kind of minimal elements on the screen or with some UI or voiceover or something like that, or something that you can help them add some kind of visual or audio cues to guide players towards their objective. Speaking about this, I've highly recommended a book written by Steve Crumb. This is a book in the same name as the point, Don't Make Me Think. The book is about how to improve the usability on web and mobile device design accessibility, but it's also having the same principle about how to design a game for your audience. And the next part, we go to the game feel and immersion. This is the part that we start to think, oh, we already got all this cool game flow, we already got it's fun and people are loving it, but I need to add a few flavors to it. I need to add some kind of juice, by adding some kind of satisfying feedback to the player when they start to do any actions or win the game or things like that. So the first thing that I want to call out in Fortnite, especially in Fortnite, the movement itself is very important. We build a lot of what we call as movement verbs, including all these new season movements, which make you can be fun to traverse through the world. That we have optimized mechanics like jumping, sliding, and climbing, so it can be working smoothly for it. So when you design maps or when you design layout for it, a suggestion is also that if you design a game, you want the majority of Fortnite players want to enjoy in the shooting mechanics or in this kind of resource blue or any of the game that you want to do with the default Fortnite BR style. You should start to think about how to embed this new movement modes like de-jump or roll landing, which is something that they don't need to learn another type of mechanics. You can of course design your own stuff. That's very welcome, but that's something that you can start to think about later when you understand how this movement works for us. And then there is another thing that, and this is something about how to eliminate some of the junkies that we see when the player is eliminated. In the recent release, we got a new feature called elimination camera. In this elimination camera, if you put any of the camera device, you can easily mark them to be used as this elimination camera purpose. So I give you a very simple example. I move to this trap, I get eliminated. I will switch to another camera, focus on this trap, so I know who eliminated me. I add some kind of moment that will tell me who makes that impact, who gets me killed, and who is the guy I will do that next. I will try to fight it back. So this third part is about something that it might be an interesting title. I call it as destructive dream. So it's more about destruction and impactful meaning for it. So one of the great things I do in Fortnite is that Fortnite itself, especially the BR itself, is something about building and anti-building. A lot of design about how the weapon, vehicle works are actually smashing them together. So if you want to build a world with this kind of destruction mechanics, make it satisfying. Make it something that properly state that if you want to destroy one building, to get down entirely. If you want to make some kind of impactful explosion to the world, make it as noticeable as possible. And the next part is something that you can learn from Patchwork is about sound. I know that a lot of people might not care about sound too much, but one thing I want to call out is that when you play the game, when you make the game work with this kind of interactive sound, listen to a state of different player interactions or your game state, can help to optimize it to make sure that it has better environment immersion and also precise sound cue, which stands out what you are currently doing, where you are, things like that. So I'll give you an example. Like you can scan this QR code to go to the example island we built, and I guess you might be into that, but it's pretty cool if you know. So with that, you can actually do a lot of things. You can even actually build some music-driven, game fight, boss fight, and also reacting to the player states for it. And the last that I'm giving here is about the victory lap or victory royale. So one of the important things I think we should always put in hands about this victory moment. It should be something satisfying player a lot. It's something like feel like you get this victory, royale, you feel like this chief case moment. It's really great, it's really memorable. And you want to add some kind of satisfying effect or animations or even add some kind of cutscene to surround your player. Feel like, I am the king, I beat him. So those are the important moments. It helps you to push this game feel to a satisfying level a bit, and that makes your player happy. And then in the next part, we'll start to talk about something about visual polish. I'm a designer and I'm not, technical artist or environment artist, so I can only show what I can learn here. And there are some in-depth knowledge. I show a few QR code you can direct scan to our, official documentation to look into. So visual polish is something that would be an interesting topic about how we build a consistent art style, how we enhance readability, and also add dynamic effect for things like impact or any of the in-world actions we have. And the first thing that I want to call out is something interesting that when we start to use the desequence or use the post-processing volume or anything like that, we want to set up a perfect mode work well with your game. Like using post-processing, that we can select a lot of different presets from this game. And what works is pretty well is that, for example, if you go to the Walking Dead island, if you start going into this typical comic like this kind of black and white environment, you feel you are going back to the old movies and fighting with the zombies. Those are good for your game. Might not good for everyone, but you can find a good balance for it. You can find a fine tune about the lighting, about this kind of coloring of your game. And then there's another thing that I want to tell is this is associated with the color language we have in the game, which is I call that make the prop color and make sure that properly visually identify where it is. So if you are looking at the screenshot I took from BR, BR is doing a great job about that. Looking at all the rooftops, all the obstacle, all the edge, you can see that clearly. It's different from the other building pieces of the world. If you are looking at a door, interactive door, or something that you can only destructive, non-interactive door, it's always visually different. Those are the things that. Those are also one of the things that we call it as part of the don't make me think. When you make this kind of consistent visual language to tell player where to go, where not, they will not make mistakes. They will not feel stressful why this is not working and why I should pick another way. And then let's go to another part. It's about animation. So I'm using the Fall Guys as an example because Fall Guys might be the best animation example that we gave in the world about how to use animated props and how to make that work better in the game. So when you're doing the animation, you want to bring the life to the actual pixels in the world to make the object dancing around, fighting around. And static object definitely feel like boring and not fun. But sometimes when you try to add animation to it, you need to be careful about is this animation is a purely visual side dress up. If that's it, you have a lot of way to do it, like use a lot of sequences. I saw a lot of sequences used in game wheel, adding that or adding a lot of VFX for it. However, if this is something relevant to the gameplay side, you need to choose the right tech carefully to make sure that those gameplay is actually running properly on the server and replicated to the client side. One example is that if you are looking at the Fall Guys usage, about how they implemented the rotation prop. And this is something that they write with logic using the animation controller, which is actually doing some kind of movement prediction in that controller to make sure that when it's moved, it's not adding a lot of jankiness and feel like visually it looks this way, but actually it's doing in that way. So that's why when you are looking at how we built this Fall Guys example, it looks pretty well. It looks pretty smooth. I don't. For most of this, for guys experience that if you write your own custom source code to handle this rotation movement, or if you are not a big fan of the source code, use the proper mover device. They show some similar underlying tech behind. Use a very specific mover component and try to simulate how the movement will be happening, and with this kind of linear movement or some kind of a non-linear one or the rotation one. For the proper mover, it might be restricted at this moment because we don't support the rotation previously, but this is happening soon. So if you are still more in favor of using devices, you can try it in a later release. And the next one is about the transition. It's about the way how we hide all the junkies. So as you can see that in the other part of the Fortnite loading screen, we have this kind of very long loading bar. There are a lot of things happening underlying it. So there are a lot of things trying to race around that, try to load all the player state, try to load all the environment, try to initialize everything need to happen, and try to make sure your day of your time and day environment is properly get settled. We don't have exactly the same control over here, but we can also have some kind of prediction about how you can hide the jump when you're trying to teleport player to another location, or when you try to start a game. Sometimes you want to start the game immediately, but it might not be the best choice, because when you start the game just loading into that, not everything is properly loaded or initialized. You might want to add some kind of additional class like UI, or you might want to add some kind of additional post effect to try to hide that. One of the common post effects we are using in video games is that when you move around, for example, you fly around in the world and traverse a short distance, we add some kind of screen, white screen, full white screen, at some kind of 1 second or less than 1 second to cover this junkies. So we know that something is loading behind. Our machine is not powerful enough to handle that, but we can make it less noticeable. And then the next part is something relevant to the level design side. It's kind of suggestions from when you design the maps. This is a map from the Battle Royale, but this is also something that you can think about when you try to design a map with multiple POIs, point of interest. Try to think about the depth of the map. Think about what is the way you try to look into, and where is the POIs can help you to guide the direction. And you have a lot of ways to do that, by adding some kind of forward layer, backward layer, and also midward layer. This kind of thing that's to help people to understand where is the closest location you can move to, and where is the direction, where is the North Star, the game is trying to tell you to. So this is some kind of thing that when you try to build a game mode that's including a lot of open world elements, including a lot of player adventures and exploration, and that will be a thing that you will think about. You will need to properly design when you start to get into a world. Think about all the iteration about your world. Think about all where there's POIs, where there's fortress, where this enemy bases will be looked at, and that's one of the important part. Make sure that you can use your visual layering to handle things like that. And the next part is about performance optimization. So it's a way that how we identify and eliminate bottlenecks as using our profiling tools or the current tool we got. So it coming to some kind of practice that, for example, first Fortnite is running on tons of platforms. We have run that in high-end PC, we have run that in different platforms like PS4, Switch, or the upcoming Switch 2, or mobile devices, like we are getting back to iOS. So there are all the platforms we try to make them work, but not all of them are supporting all the high-end features like Night or which we are getting for it. So for that, when you are trying to do so, there's a very simple way you can try to simulate the effect of the game. Just go into your editor settings. We have the preview level, and you can simply switch to the preview of different platforms. This is exactly the same way as what you can do in the standard Unreal Engine side, but we are sorting out what will be a supported platform we have, so it can be precisely present what it can be in your final game. When I said precisely, sometimes it might be slightly different because a mobile platform that when it starts to cook the shadows, when it starts to do the sensing, it might have some kind of slight difference about what the end product of that you're showing. But I can say that likely 90% of this preview should work well. And then the last 10% might be the chance that you can actually load it into your phone and then play with that. And then there it comes to another thing is about how we optimize the LOD or level details. The level detail control we have now is mostly about sensor on the static mesh that you want them to only be visible in a certain distance. You want them to be highly optimized. In this QR code, it links to the essential guide of our Epic development documentation about how to do that. But this is one of the major things when you try to make a large world. When you try to make sure that it's running on smooth performance, make sure your LED was set properly. And the current UEFN uses the only restriction on the LED side is that we don't have control on the NPC's LED. We don't have direct control to say that what would be this kind of optimized distance for that. So that is something that we're still discussing with the engineering team to handle that out. But first, start with the static mesh, and the NPC will come next. And the next part is about the optimization tool when we only have this limited memory and everybody we count in this shared memory on the server side of Sense4, including the UEFN assets, material props you are using. So if you go into UEFN now that we have the current special profiler that you can start the live edit session, you can start with your friends or start by yourself and record that edit session. In that session, it includes a lot of important information like what will be object count you have in it. And one of the very useful side that in this tool, you can actually switch to the server performance part. Because when you start to do the live edit session, it's actually connected to the server. So when you switch to the server side, and this will help you to understand better about what is currently loaded and running on the server versus what is currently running on my client. And that helps you to know, okay, what will be the most performance costing side of the world. And the next part is about textures. Texture is also another complicated texture that topic about, when we start to work with texture that sometimes, the texture pool of UEFN or of the Unreal Engine can easily be exploded if you have a lot of high-risk texture embedded in your game. Like if you make a lot of high-risk textures for your game, which is not used for the UI side, is used for the environment, it can easily explode your device or break that game, make some kind of crash on the Switch or on the mobile phone because it cannot handle the same memory pool as the same that we handle in the other hidden platform. So that's why that we try to use this kind of texture pool optimization and try to use the texture streaming to handle that and try to make sure that you are not using a lot of the high risk like 2K high risk textures on this non-UI element. And then it can easily break that. Because for UI part is different. On UI side, usually we don't add tons of UI for it. It can easily remove from it. It will be recycled. But for the environment, when it's loaded, unless the object is destroyed, it will always be there. It can easily kill your game and hit some kind of client crash. Thank you and thanks for coming here and everyone welcome to the De-Jank one-on-one session.